Hello and welcome to the curriculum preview for the third 6 weeks. This curriculum preview will focus on deeper thinking and planning to focus on deeply learning our standards. In this curriculum PLC, you will deconstruct, unpack, and gain a deeper understanding of the standards to plan for student success. I am Felicia Wilkerson, your Elementary ELAR and Social Studies Coordinator. For this PLC, you'll need your PLC for the Reading PLC document, copies of your Content Builder document, and your Unit 3 IFD. Please take a moment to review your assessment blueprint. Please note the number of instructional days, as well as your assessment posting date and your assessment date. Your agenda for this PLC is to review our learning targets, study the heat map data to identify hotspots, study our standards, and collaborate with your team to discuss instructional implications and evidences of learning using the standards. Your learning targets today are to use the standards to plan for instruction, use high-interest resources to plan for student learning with expository text, plan for specific evidences of learning that are aligned with the standards, and align your curriculum instruction and assessments in order for students to master the standards. Teachers should understand and be able to articulate in advance the teaching of the achievement targets students are to master. Curriculum, instruction, and assessment must be aligned in order for us to reach our goal, which is student learning. Many teachers believe they understand their standards, but the truth is that many teachers have not had the opportunity to truly deconstruct, unpack, and understand their standards. Let's take the opportunity today to do just that for this unit. The fact is, in order to implement curriculum, instruction, and assessments that are accurately aligned to state standards, teachers must have the tools to deeply understand the standards. The tools that help us achieve this are our IFD and our Content Builder documents, as well as using our PLC team as a resource to have some rich discussions about the standards and the instructional implications they hold. We use PLC discussions to discuss student learning and how it is to be aligned with the state standards. It's a time of learning and sharing. Please pause the video at this time to answer these questions. What tools do you use to understand the standards? And what criteria can you establish to ensure your instruction is aligned with the state standards? We will begin by studying our Grade 3 heat map by standard. In Unit 3, for reading, our primary focus is expository text. So let's take a look at our expository XCs to identify our hotspots. 3.13 is a hotspot, as is 3.13b. Now let's take a look at our knowledge and skills statements that are assessed and dual-coded with our process standards, Figure 19. 3.13 is a hotspot, 3.12, and 3.13 when dual-coded with Figure 19 are all hotspots. Step 1 is to analyze the knowledge and skills statement. Note the levels of inferences students need to make. Also note that this knowledge and skills statement is assessed and it's dual-coded with Figure 19D and E. The IFD provides example questioning for you to consider as types of questions students should be asked to respond to in the classroom. Please pause the video at this time to discuss with your team the following questions. What are the most important ideas in this knowledge and skills statement? What broad concepts will the students need to know in order to master this standard? Are these ideas being introduced or developed? And how are these ideas relevant to students? 3.13a says to identify the details or facts that support the main idea. 3.13b asks for students to draw conclusions from the facts presented in text and support these assertions with textual evidence. Take a moment to discuss with your team, what would this look like in students' evidence of learning for details that support the main idea? And how will the students demonstrate drawing conclusions? Please pause the video at this time to allow for discussion. At this time, please turn back to your IFD to the knowledge and skills statements and the SEs that we've identified for the hotspots. For your PLC discussions today, focus on the following questions for both the knowledge and skills statement and the SEs. For each standard, identify the verb, the content, that is, what are you explicitly teaching, and the context. Here it will be expository text in context of the whole, part, and specific lines in text. Discuss as a team the concepts and vocabulary students will need to understand in order to master the SE. Discuss and decide what other SEs in the various strands can the standard be paired or bundled with. Discuss and select the different types of resources needed for students to master the standard, and consider what will the resources need to include. Discuss what information the students will need to know in order to master the standard. What are the instructional implications of the verb? These are descriptions of what the teacher should do in the classroom. It helps to answer the question, what does it look like? And finally, what are the assessment implications of the verb? That is, what are some ways to informally and formally assess student mastery? Please pause the video at this time as you go deep into your IFD to study the standards and consider these questions as your purposes for reading. What do we want our students to learn? After you've studied your standards deeply, you want to establish a learning target for students by writing it out. Then you want to choose a variety of high-interest expository text with different organizational patterns and text that is rich so that it will allow students to make complex inferences and draw conclusions about the text. You want to read and annotate the text prior to assigning it to students. Are the main ideas in each paragraph stated or implied, or is there a good mixture of both? And does the topic and information allow for students to infer and analyze the text? Then you will want to create some text-dependent questions for students to answer collaboratively and independently. Establish purposes for reading that you will share with students. And how will you help students establish their own purposes for reading? Consider how you will model the thinking you expect students to demonstrate independently. And lastly, consider how will students demonstrate their analysis of the expository text. What will be their evidence of learning? For instance, if I were considering using this article, I would ask myself, does the article have various structures? Can I create text-dependent questions using the article that align with the standards? What will the students provide as evidences of learning? What strategies will I model for students to emulate? Can the students draw conclusions based on the text? And are there multiple author's purposes in sections of the text? And is the author's purpose clear? The Content Builder is a tool to use to organize your instruction. For reading, our process standards are Figure 19. Figure 19A, B, and C, and the use of a flexible range of active reading skills are the ways in which students will access the concepts and contents. Students must be able to use comprehension skills in order to fully engage with the text. Likewise, students also demonstrate their learning through the process standards. Figure 19. Students' ability to make inferences, summarize text, and make connections within the text and between other texts on the same topic are ways students demonstrate their analysis of text. Please pause the video to discuss each readiness standard and ways your team can support that learning through scaffolds of learning. The Content Builder tool can be used with each knowledge and skill statement and each SE to plan your daily lessons. Appropriate and different types of assessments are essential for informing students about their level of success in ways that affirm and stimulate their efforts, and for informing their teachers so that more customized learning experiences may be provided in a timely way. Well-conceived and well-designed evidences of learning should also be used to reveal to parents, the school, the district, and society at large the extent to which the desired learning is occurring and what schools are doing to continuously improve. MIDR will take you far when you're reading informational text. This strategy for expository text is called MIDR, which is really just an acronym. MI stands for main idea, D stands for detail, and R stands for response. Students read an informational text closely, analyzing each paragraph for the main idea, the most important details, while monitoring their own comprehension. On the passage, you can see the routine and expectation that students establish their own purpose for reading by posing a question they expect to have answered. This will be their writing assignment, where they will write an expository text explaining the answer to their question. Also, you can see the students' use of active reading and their own strategy as to how they decided to approach the text. Many strategies had been modeled, and students used strategies that worked for them. For each paragraph, students either write the topic sentence as the main idea, or they paraphrase their own main idea when it is implied. Students then paraphrase and summarize the most important details in the text that support the main idea. Finally, reading is thinking, and so we always want students to respond to what they're reading. This thinking should demonstrate their level of understanding. Student responses include inferences, questions they generate while reading, and active reading to demonstrate their understanding of the text. Turning headings and subheadings into questions. This is a SIOP strategy, where the student will be able to turn headings and subheadings into key questions and then answer the questions after reading about the topic. As a teacher delivers a lesson, it is critical that students have a purpose for reading so they see the path they are to follow. Questions provide students with the purpose. Guide students to look at the bold headings to predict the types of questions they may be asked about the information in the text. Model for the entire class and demonstrate how to turn the headings and subheadings in a text into questions. These questions become the focus and purpose for the subsequent reading. Students use the questions to monitor their comprehension throughout the text. Students write the questions and answer them during and after reading. Finally, we want to ensure that we are integrating reading and writing. Students should read, write, and discuss daily. Writing instruction is continuous, as students are to consistently draft about their learning, their reading, their research, etc. Culminating activities should include the integration of reading and writing, as they are reciprocal processes. For instance, after reading informational texts, allow students to authentically generate a research question they would like to investigate. Or students can write an expository text based on their initial question prior to reading the text. Students can then research further on the topic and begin a draft to explain or inform. Teachers can provide descriptive feedback for revising and editing, and allow the student to carry that research writing through the full writing process. View this video as students and educators talk about the importance of reading comprehension. Notice how the students are reading, writing, and discussing.
I feel like comprehension is the holy grail of reading instruction.
The predictions help me to kind of expect what's going to happen next. The inferences make me aware of the characters.
It's not that other aspects of reading aren't challenging, and it's not as though there aren't, important areas of research to pursue in other aspects of reading, but really comprehension is what it's all about. It's what we're aiming for.
The connections help, because if I'm connected to something, then it helps me learn more because I know about what I connected it to.
For the definition of comprehension, I just draw on the Rand Commission's report where they call comprehension the process of simultaneously extracting and constructing meaning from text. And to me, comprehension is absolutely the goal of reading. It's why we all read.
Like it is. They don't sugarcoat anything. They have integrity, accuracy, and authenticity, and both use figurative language. The book that we are reading by Gary Paulson is nonfiction, but still has figurative language.
Where did you come up with all those great words?
Both right there. They're both honest, and their words can be proven, and they both use language that's figurative or literal.
You were able to prove everything that you said. You backed it up with some really strong details.
Research suggests that teachers actually can make a really big difference in students' comprehension. They can do this by teaching comprehension strategies, which is something that's been shown over and over in research.
Maybe we make fun. We need this, but not this.
They can also make a difference for students by engaging students in discussion and writing and other opportunities to really construct meaning from text, share meaning with others, and sort of negotiate meaning in a social context.
Brain, all of you kiss your brain.
Finally, teachers make a big difference for students' comprehension when they build their knowledge base. Comprehension really relies on your having a lot of knowledge relevant to the text, and so the more that teachers can do to provide rich experiences and build knowledge for students, the better the students' comprehension development will go.
Some differences from the South that are near.
Remembers reasons why the African Americans moved from the South to the North. Okay, Giancarlo, go ahead.
They moved because they needed a better life because they didn't have money.
Okay, that's good. Better life. What do you mean by better life? Because that's a general term, right? Okay.
For a better job.
Okay, a better job. What was another reason? Go ahead.
The war had doubled the cost of food and made life harder for the poor.
Okay.
The 3rd through 5th grade is an incredibly important time for comprehension development.
The river rises and rises until it floods before the modern dams were built.
It's certainly a time when the texts that students are reading become much more complex. The topics are often more abstract, less in the here and now. The nature of the language in the text becomes more written-like and less like the oral language that children are accustomed to.
Should we do this, the little part of the subtitle under the picture?
That's a great idea. Is it important? Is it interesting? Does it need to be included? Josephine?
I don't think so.
Why not?
Because it's not really about the topic, but it's about one single crisis.
So it's a detail
Yeah.
about one artifact.
The structure of the text becomes a lot more advanced, more sophisticated. Texts often include more features such as diagrams, tables, maps, charts, and so on in informational text, or more complex plot devices in narrative text. And for students who are encountering these for this first time, they pose a tremendous challenge. We have a lot of really interesting research on what good readers do when they read. With most of these studies, what we do is actually have good readers talk aloud or think aloud as they read. We observe them, we listen to what they say, and then we're able to know sort of what's going on in their head that allows them to comprehend so well. Study after study of this kind shows that good readers are extremely active when they're reading.
And let's think about what would cause Gary Paulson to stop trapping. That's what I want you to think about today. Before I begin, Anthony?
I have an inference that he stopped trapping because he wanted to go into dog races, and you usually get rewarded much more money than you would trapping.
Okay, what is leading you to infer that he's going to stop that for dog racing?
Because he has dogs and he probably saw this flyer or something that he probably just saw reward. And then he said, dog racing, I have dogs, so I don't know, I just joined.
They're really making meaning as they go. They're thinking constantly about what they're understanding, what they're not understanding. They're reacting to the text with opinions, with counterexamples, with connections to their own experiences. They're applying background knowledge like crazy. That comes up in study after study as such an important part of what good readers do when they read. They ask themselves questions as they read often. They are previewing, they're looking at text structure. They're just extraordinarily active.
What if the teacher makes her friends? What about the other kids don't be her friends?
then that'll be okay.
But I think it's gonna be just like Molly's children. First she's gonna have an enemy, then she's gonna have a friend. So she want her mom to come to school. She's just gonna want her brother to come to school with her every day.
And what happens if her brother gonna go without her?
She could go with her dad.
But maybe his dad works. Yeah, what if her dad's not around?
I got a question that we might find in the book later, but could I ask it now?
Sure.
Does the dad have a job?
You never know. You don't know yet.
Maybe he's in a factory because she might be an immigrant.
When I contrast that with some of the struggling readers we work with, I mean, it's really stark. We'll have students who just open up the text and immediately start reading, not thinking about why they're reading, not previewing the text, not thinking about what it might be about. Then as they read, it's just really trying to take in the very bare bones facts of the text without really processing it, without trying to integrate it with what else they know, without in any way questioning whether the text may be accurate. One of the most important things that teachers need to do to build students' comprehension is to teach comprehension strategies, to teach children to do those things that good readers do when they read.
I will share more of the video in PLCs to come. But as we've been talking about in all the other curriculum previews, it's the process of reading that's most important, and teachers can have a strong impact on student comprehension. At this time, discuss with your team the planning and delivery of the instruction of Unit 3. Discuss the types of text that will be used and the levels of thinking students will be expected to demonstrate. For reading, all levels of thinking should be used. Based on your previous discussions and your careful deconstructing, unpacking, and understanding of the standards, determine various instructional strategies you can use to model and facilitate student learning. Finally, discuss what types of evidences of learning will demonstrate that students have carefully analyzed the informational text. What are the different ways in which it should look? How should it sound? Please pause the video at this time to allow for discussion. Finally, before we close, I want to go back and review our learning targets. Can you use the standards to plan for instruction? Can you choose high-interest resources to plan for student learning with expository text? And can you plan for specific evidences of learning that are aligned with standards? And can you ensure that your curriculum, instruction, and assessments are aligned for students to master the standards? I appreciate you participating in the PLC curriculum preview to better understand the standards. If you have suggestions for future curriculum previews, I'd love to hear your ideas, and please feel free to submit them to me. Also, I would love to hear from you if you have an instructional strategy that you would like to showcase in upcoming videos. Please be sure to submit a copy of the PLC for the Reading PLC document to the appropriate campus designee. And until next time, goodbye.